What's going on, guys? First off, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. I really hope you guys enjoy it. I want to take this time for thanking each and every single one of you guys for helping us, supporting us in our cause. I also want to take this time for thanking my wonderful team, Brandon and Allison, who put in so much work for everything that they do. Remember, guys, if you guys can do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and comment on this video. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you guys wanted to, make sure you tune into our social medias. Candid with Candia podcast across Instagram and TikTok. Once again, I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Candid with Candia podcast. Today, I have a very special friend with me, Sarah. Sarah, how's it going?
Hi, Bobby.
All of our viewers avidly know that I like to start off the episode by, kind of letting you talk about what you do and who you are and stuff like that. So what can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah, born and raised in Texas, grew up in a small town, moved to San Antonio, and now I work in customer success in the technology space, which my career didn't start out that way, but that's where I've landed.
What did you initially start to do?
Yeah, so I studied kinesiology and then moved into teaching pre-K and then moved into youth sports. COVID happened, got laid off, was trying to look at how I could apply my skills in a different career space and make more money and stuff like that, and found customer success and just have moved my way up.
That's good. Obviously for a lot of us, when you go to college, nothing really tends to go
how you planned it,
the way you plan it.
Yeah.
So same thing with me. I originally went into college trying to be a political science major, and
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went in for poli-sci. I was in debate in high school.
Okay.
Avid debater.
I didn't know that.
Wanted to be a lawyer. And that, I started working, or I did an internship with a judge out in El Paso. And I remember sitting in his office one time, and he was telling me, just kind of giving me the go around and stuff like that. And then I saw that he had a degree in business marketing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, business marketing, you're in law, how does that work? And we just got to talking, and he was telling me that he started off as a corporate lawyer, and then I started thinking hey, you know what, corporate law might be really cool. So I started going, I switched my major. Mm-hmm. And then my mom was a real estate agent, still is, but I loved sales, and that's kind of where that passion grew. So.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to see how different our lives turned out as opposed to what we expected them to be.
Oh my gosh, I know. I feel like if I was telling 18-year-old Sarah that I was not a physical therapist or in the health space at all, they would be like, okay, whatever, you're lying. It's fine.
If I could go back in time and tell myself yeah, you're not going to be a lawyer, dude. I'll be yeah, screw you. Yes, I'm
going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I probably would have become a lawyer because I'm very
because of that.
I'm very stubborn. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to prove you wrong.
Right.
But I don't know. A lot of our conversations tend to go back to college and the good times and how drastically we've changed since then. And it's amazing to see the people that we grow to be. You know what I'm saying? I know when I was in college, I wasn't the best apple in the bunch. So
you weren't bad.
No, I know, but it's just it kind of.
You grow.
You do grow, yeah, and you have that awakening moment sometimes, and you're like, yeah, I got to do something about this. But there's so many people out there that don't have that awakening moment.
What do you think your awakening moment was?
That's a deep question.
I know.
I think it was a series of things.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't the best person. I wasn't the best boyfriend. I wasn't the best friend. Mm-hmm. And I started seeing other people's lives other people around me. They started changing how they treated me. Mm. And I didn't like that. And I started realizing, and I don't know what initially caused it, but I started realizing that it wasn't them that was doing it to me. It was me that was doing it to myself. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
And it was me that was doing it to them. And that was causing that change. And I remember one time getting candid. my ex-girlfriend that I had cheated on, my high school sweetheart, I felt really bad about it, but I was still that same person. And I remember one time we were out at a bar, and Brandon was talking to her. Brandon and her were very close, and for good reason. I mean, they're two amazing people.
Yeah.
And I was still so insecure and still so stupid. And I told Brandon, I was like, I don't want you hanging out with her anymore. And that wasn't something that was right from me. And she got really upset. I hurt her. I hurt him. And that night didn't turn out too well. And at that moment, I kind of realized, like, I got to do something to change. And I didn't change overnight, right? Like,
Yeah.
I started seeing stuff that I was doing more.
You became more self-aware, though.
I became more self-aware.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it just kind of led into that snowball. And then once I joined the car business, once again, I didn't initially change. I still wasn't really making that much money. And then I saw all of these other people just so successful, you know, in their right mind, in their right headspace, and really making money and just happy. And I started hanging out with them. And I guess that goes back to everything I've been preaching on is you're the sum of the people that you hang out with.
Yeah.
You know? And that rubbed off on me. So then I wanted to, you know, kind of get to their scale.
Right. You always want to, like, better yourself.
Yeah.
To, like, be the best version of yourself for the people around you.
And at that moment, I was, you know, I was comparing myself to them. And I always wanted to kind of be where they were. And then once I started getting to that point and I started hanging out with them and I started getting better and I started, you know, kind of bettering my life, that's when I really started realizing I shouldn't compare myself to them. I should compare myself to myself.
Right.
And that's when, like, the floodgates opened. And it was just, you know, just a door opening for success and happiness and kind of self-awareness, like, kind of like what you said, self-awareness.
Right. You stop comparing yourself so much to others that you're just focused on, like, your own growth. Yeah. I feel like I still struggle with that.
No, I mean, I think we all do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, it's something that we can always, you know, get better at. And there's always room for improvement. I'm not saying I'm perfect. There's plenty of times where I slip up, and I'm very hard on myself. I talked about this in the previous episode. I'm very hard on myself, but I think now I'm hard on myself better. You know, like the other night, we had
Softball?
at softball. For our viewers that don't know, we had a really rough game. We're having a rough season.
We are. We're just, like, not... I guess we're kind of replaced a few people on the team, and it's just everything's changed a little bit. And we're figuring out
We're trying to
this
figure
team.
out.
Yeah,
Absolutely. But, you know, it was our third loss in a row, and I don't think we've ever lost
that many in a row.
3 games in a row. So I just completely flipped out, and I was pissed. I was upset by, like, halfway through the game, and then on the way home, I was like, all right, dude, like, calm down. Like, it's just a game. And from there, I kind of started getting better, but that's just the competitive nature in me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just me always wanting to win and do stuff. I don't know. It's kind of hard. You have that balance of, like, wanting to win and be competitive and then just wanting to have fun and be in the moment.
Yeah. And softball puts you in a really weird space because I think most of us on the team are that way, where we are kind of, like, hyper competitive people, and we're all, like, previous athletes. So then we want to win, but we also realize, like, this isn't that big of a deal. Like, it's just like a social league softball team, but it's hard to separate it sometimes.
It's very hard. And then, like, something I realized, like, when I was driving home too, is, like, we normally stay after and we'll drink a little bit and we'll have fun and we just talk, and 9 times out of 10 it's not even about the game.
Right.
It's just us being friends and stuff like that. And I realized I missed an opportunity to hang out with my friends. I was there.
Because you were letting the anger get to the best of you.
100%.
Yeah.
And I was there, like, but I wasn't there mentally. Like,
yeah.
I don't think I said
you
10
didn't.
words.
I felt bad.
And I'm normally very talkative.
Right.
But it was just, it's stuff like that now I start to see. And
quicker, you think?
Quicker. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I back then I didn't have any remorse for my actions. Like, I did what I did and I'm like, like, on to the next one. You know what I'm saying? And now it's like, I want to be able to make those changes quicker.
And learn from it.
And learn from them, absolutely. Because, like, I've always been really good at learning from my failures, but I want to be able to start picking out those failures quicker so I can learn quicker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just, and that's something that I've noticed about you, because you kind of, like, started talking about it as, you know, I was a teacher and then I started here and I started doing that, and, you know, you were in kinesiology. Like, you're very good at change.
Yeah, I'm very adaptable.
You're very adaptable, and that's something I had to learn. I'm not very good with like stepping out of my comfort zone, which sounds very weird because I'm a very open person. But like, one of the biggest things for me was getting out of the car business, going into real estate.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think those kind of moves they haven't ever scared me, but I don't think that it's like not difficult to do those sort of things. Like, I see like why change is difficult. And I think sometimes I'm too flexible. I was talking to my boss about this actually, because I'm moving to a new opportunity, and I was reflecting back on like, what are some things that I could work on? What did I learn from this experience at this current job I'm in? And I was like, I think at times I am a little bit too flexible, where I think it's important to like be able to, I don't know, stick to something. Like, I get like kind of distracted. I'm like, I want to try this, I want to try that. Or I'm working to be adaptable for somebody else and not sticking up for like what I need to do or get done.
Do you see that as a bad thing?
Yes.
What like, why is that?
Because I think sometimes I need to like, if I'm thinking about my personal life, I need to like stick up for myself and like the things that I want. And that's something that I have like noticed and become more self-aware on, is like being able to talk about like what I need. But then like in my professional life, I feel like I have things that I need to meet. Like, I have metrics, I have OKRs, and I'm like, okay, if I'm too flexible for my client, then I'm not going to hit my own goals.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
that's very fair.
balance.
Yeah. Balance. That's the perfect word. And that's kind of the same thing in sales. And Mason and I talked about it in the previous episode. It kind of comes at what cost, right? Like in the car business, you're making a lot of money. It's great. But at what cost? Some people are okay with the long hours. I'm okay with working long hours.
Yeah.
For me, it was freedom. Like, I mean, when I get into real estate, I'm going to be working a lot of hours, but I'm going to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do, like I'm my own boss.
Right.
And that's kind of that balance for me is I want to be able to go to the gym, and I want to be able to hang out or go home and see my family. Like, that was one of the biggest things for me. I went years without seeing my family sometimes.
And it shows like how important that is to you, because now you've had that opportunity to go, and you go see your family a lot, which I think is so special.
Yeah, my family is everything to me.
Yeah.
And it's moving to San Antonio was one of the hardest things for me. And I feel like that's why I kind of changed who I was. I never grew up the way I first was here in San Antonio.
Okay.
I wasn't the asshole. I wasn't the drinker. I wasn't the partier. I was never really that person. Yeah, I had a lot of friends. Yes, I was very happy. But when I moved to San Antonio and I was away from my family, I kind of, went off the walls. And now to this day, it's easier. I'm accustomed. I've been here 12 years now, but still seeing, all my family's in El Paso. My brother just moved out to Arizona. He's doing great, but to see my family, like the other night they were at Bingo, like that's small stuff that I miss.
Yeah.
Like birthday parties. I mean, we had game nights, and I mean, Uno at our house was insane. But like, that's something that I don't get to do here. I try to replicate it.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, the small group of friends that I have, we're able to, be a family. But it's still not the same.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's something that you're very good at, is like you have such a good ring of friends around you.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot, that we've built, because all of us have family that are like outside of where we live. And so we've built this sense of community and family of like just our friends, which is really, really nice, because my parents live in Alabama, my brother lives in Houston, and I'm super close with my family like you. And so moving away, I had to create some sort of sense of community, or it never would have worked. I would have never stayed here if I wouldn't have built the relationships that I did.
100%. And that's a lot of people, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe your mindset is different, but a lot of people think that stuff happens organically. I think to some extent that's true, to some extent.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to create it.
You have to put in effort, especially as an adult. Like, you can't just like be like, oh, like I don't have friends, like I don't know what to do and stuff like that. Even with your like closest friends, you have to put in that effort of like communicating with each other, making plans, stuff like that. And as adults, it's hard because your life is busy. But if you're not putting in that effort, it's important. I actually found a good article about that, which I know I already said I'll send you another article, but it talks a lot about proximity. And how like back in the day, like people used to be just like generally closer to each other, but now that we don't have that like close proximity, like people are happier if you live closer to your friends. Very interesting.
Yeah, and that's funny. That's funny that you say that, because Luis, another really good friend of mine, he lives very close by, and him and I are just always hanging out, and it's so nice to have someone so close by. One of the hardest things for me, and I mean, I think he knows it, was when he moved to Austin.
Yeah.
That was one of the hardest things for me, and it was like me moving out of El Paso again, and I was like, that's my best friend, like. And I'm over here crying, and he lives an hour and 15 minutes away from me. Like,
but it's far.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
And not being able to see each other as much as you normally do. Like him and I will.
So you don't have the
FaceTime
freedom to do that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you don't realize it until that person like is not that close to you, because we do get like our lives are so busy, and then you're like, oh my gosh, well.
You don't realize how good something is until
it's gone.
Until it's gone. I wouldn't say
That's
it's gone,
gone.
obviously. Like, he's still my best
He's
friend.
gone now. He lives in Austin.
It's like he's dead to me. But, I mean, he still comes down for the podcast. He's still, you know.
We always see each other all the time.
Yeah,
it's
we
just,
do.
And I think that's another thing. It goes back to that intentionality. Like, they make time to come down and see us.
100%. And that's another thing, is like, you hear it all the time, but he's also that type of friend that I don't think if I didn't see him for years and we got back together, I feel
everything
it would be
fine.
Yeah, it'd be the exact same thing.
I think those are special types of relationships
100%.
too.
And those are the type of relationships you take to the grave.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I want to say in almost every episode I've mentioned him, because, and that's how big my passion is for him, and the loyalty and the friendship that him and I have. And you can't replicate it.
No.
You know, it's hard to find something like that. And when you do find something like that, to
You
let
hold
it
on
go.
to it.
100%.
Yeah.
But that's also something that him and I have worked very hard for. I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, you can ask him. There's been plenty of times. I mean, we fight. We're brothers. We argue. But at the end of the day, like, I remember, like, I have one of the most vivid memories. I have so many memories with this guy. Like, so many. But I remember just, you know, I can't remember even what the argument was. But it was an ex of mine, had a really bad argument. I was sitting, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm repeating stories. But, you know, I remember he comes in, and I'm sitting in the doorway, and I'm just sitting out back, and I'm like, I think I'm crying, honestly. And he just comes and puts his arm around me. He doesn't say anything, and he just sits there
That's
with me.
sometimes all you need, though.
Yeah. And he's always known what I've needed. And it's very weird. Like,
It's sweet.
It's sweet, but it's weird. Like, for him to know exactly what I need, I'm like, all right, man. Like,
Yeah.
no, but he's my best friend, you know? And it's just, like I said, you just can't replicate stuff like that.
No, and like you mentioned, like it does take a lot of like effort, and you have to, there's different components of that. You know what I mean? Like, you have to like trust this person. You have to be vulnerable with this person. You have to make time for them. It's like any sort of relationship. A friendship is like something you have to invest in.
100%. Vulnerability. That's probably the biggest word that you said.
To get close to somebody. Yeah.
I wasn't always a vulnerable person. I was
me neither.
very closed off.
Same.
And I'm glad I'm in the right mindset now. I'm in the right headspace to be able to do this podcast, because that's what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
It's vulnerability. Like, I'm getting candid. I'm getting
Right.
candid with my viewers. I'm getting candid with, you know, the people that we bring on here. But that's a main thing that I think he's taught me. Like, he's taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable with him. Like, he's never used that against me.
And to be honest, that's hard as a man.
It is.
Like, I don't think y'all are given that sort of space to be vulnerable a lot of the time. And so I feel like it's even harder.
Yeah. But, you know, like, it's not impossible.
No, it's
You-
not.
you know,
I think it's important too.
Like, breaking the stigma.
Yes.
And that's something that I try to do here is I see it so much, and I send them, we have a group text, obviously, and I send them TikToks of, you know, just stuff that means so much to me. And the last one I think I sent them is, there's these two guys, and they're at a soccer game. And one's very reserved, you know, he's quiet, the team scores, and he's just like, you know, casually clapping his hands. The other guy's going crazy. And they're like, you can tell they're really good friends. They're hugging each other and stuff like that. And it's like a span of like multiple games throughout the season. And then at the end, you find out that it was the very energetic one that, you know, unfortunately had committed suicide. And it's like, you got to break that stigma, because you don't know what
Somebody
people
else
are
is
going.
going
Yeah,
through.
100%. Like, it's all facade sometimes.
Absolutely.
And he's been able to see through that throughout the years.
Yeah.
Like, there's been plenty of times that I'm over here, like, faking a smile. Nobody else can tell, but he can tell.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's those people that really know you.
But I had to create that. You know, like, we had to create that. And a lot of guys in general don't want to create that. Like, when they're with their boys, I know it's always like, look at me, I'm tough. You know, I'm badass. Like,
Right.
this is what I do. But to be able to be vulnerable with someone, I think that's the toughest thing that a guy can do. Honestly.
Yeah. Because it's not, like, I don't think it's necessarily, like, taught to you. If anything, like, the opposite is taught to you as, like, a young man. Of, like, you have to be tough, you have to be strong for everybody around you. Which I don't think being vulnerable doesn't equate to, like, being, like, a strong person. Like, I think, if anything, it makes you a stronger person if you are able to share those things with other people.
100%. It's just, it's, like I said, I think being vulnerable is one of the strongest things a man can do. In the right spaces, too.
Yes.
Because I know, I mean, this might be controversial, but I know there are some people that are too vulnerable and too emotional. You know, that you got to be able to find that barrier between the two.
Yeah.
Right? You still have to be that protector, that rock for your significant other, for the people around you. But you should also be able to be vulnerable. And being able to find that difference, I think, is very important, especially when you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the strongest persons I know is your fiance.
Aww.
I had to mention
He's
him
the
on here.
best, right?
No, he is. But he's always one of the strongest people. And
He is.
our relationship comes out on the softball field. And that's kind of how, and he's like my Brandon on the softball field, because I'm thinking with my heart and my emotion, he's thinking with his head. You know what I'm saying? And there's some times where I start getting emotional and he'll bring me down. Or there's some times where he gets down and I'll bring him up. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it kind of like has that balance, but he's very strong mentally. He's very...
You know, you should tell him that, because I feel like he would completely disagree.
And I know he would disagree.
Yeah.
He's one of the most humble people I know, and sometimes it pisses me off, quite honestly. When we won that tournament, they gave out a glove for...
Oh my gosh, he still talks about it.
I know he does. I know he does. They gave out a glove for the best defensive player for the tournament. And hands down, he deserves it.
Yeah.
Hands down. Were there other players out there that were close? 100%. I mean, I think Q was fantastic.
Yeah.
But I think he deserved it, ultimately. And he texted me right after we left, and he goes, I think I'm going to give the glove to Q. And I said, no, Austin, like, stop. Like, it's getting to the point where you're pissing me off because you deserve it. Like, I love how humble you are, but stop. Like, be able to accept the compliment.
Yes.
And I think that's another thing for guys. It's just very hard to accept a compliment.
Really?
Yes and no. And the only reason I'm saying this is because
I'm like, I've met some dudes that they need to kind of like take a step back, I think.
Okay, I think it's I guess maybe the way I'm trying to word it is for certain guys to accept a compliment. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, because I can think of plenty of times where someone complimented me and it sticks with me forever.
Yeah, we've talked about that too.
We have.
Yeah.
We have. Like, I remember someone complimenting me on my beard, and I was like, ooh. Like, this was like 7 years ago, and I still remember that compliment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, like, it's that small stuff. And that's the small stuff that you can do for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you do. Like, you were. I
do.
Yeah, you were
You
were one of the sweetest persons I've ever met in my life.
Thanks.
And I know you treat him very well. But I know that it's those small stuff that goes a long way for a guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
I agree.
It's just, it's the small things for us.
Yeah. You deserve to be like hyped up.
Yeah.
Yeah. About those like little things. Like, you know how, like, you were like, dang, have you been working out to Austin? Like the other day, like you were saying something funny, like silly. And I could tell it like means something to him. Because he does look good right now. I'm just like, I'll hype
really
him
good.
up.
And I try to do that so much.
Yeah.
Like, I try
I'll do that at home, too. And I'm just like, what is that? Like, who are you? Who's this dude walking in our apartment right now? Because, and I can tell, like, he'll, like, brush it off. Like, it's just being silly. But I can tell, like, it means something.
It does.
Yeah.
100%. And I know.
I see what you mean now. That, like, guys don't necessarily get complimented like that.
Yeah.
Like, y'all don't ever, like, okay, I think I should get flowers sometimes. like little gifts and stuff like that.
100%.
Yeah.
I remember, and that, like I said, I wasn't always the best person. And I'm not here to gloat myself, but I tried to realize the small stuff. An ex-girlfriend of mine, I remember calling her, and we were in the apartment, and she sounds like she just woke up. And I was like, hey, like, did you just wake up? Like, I'm on my way home. And she's like, no, I've been crying. I was like, what's wrong? And I'm literally like pulling into the apartment. And she goes, Dixie ran off. And Dixie never does that. Like, if you guys know Dixie, she's the sweetest girl ever. But our dog had ran off, and she had to go chase her. Like, and it was a very traumatic thing for her. And instantly, and this is something I wouldn't have always done. Instantly, I did a U-turn, went to H-E-B, bought like non-dairy ice cream because she was lactose intolerant, got like chocolate and like flowers. But it's like small stuff like that really go a long way to your partner. And I remember coming home and she was crying and saying like, I've never had a guy do this for me. And that's sad. A lot of guys need to notice those small things. Yeah. And
I think people in general, like, you have to like
100%. Yeah, it's not just guys.
You have to be present and like notice the small things for the people that are important in your life, and take like a second to take a step back and make sure you're doing those little things for the people that are important to you.
And you're right. It's not just relationships. It's got to be everybody. Yeah. And it's those small things. It all goes back. You don't have to do these grand gestures. Those grand gestures are great. Right. But it doesn't outweigh the small things that you do every single day. No. I think that like the best relationships are built upon lots of little moments and little things, rather than like these big grand gestures, like you stated. Like, usually those things go away. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like, you're going to be normal people around each other. What can you do in your normal everyday actions? And it's always those small things that like leave the biggest imprint in your brain. And it's nice to see.
Yeah. I agree.
I just started thinking about Dixie, and I was like,
no.
that dude, I'm telling you, that girl, she is. I have 3 dogs, but, and I'm not saying she's my favorite. I love all of them equally, especially if they're hearing this. But my dogs can hear. I talk to them like they're human. We sit down, like when he sends out the episodes, we sit down and we watch the episode together. 100%. That's really cute. I'm like, hey, that's Dad on TV. But she's been with me through thick and thin. I mean, she's been with me through the thick of it. And one time we went tubing, and this is one of my favorite stories of her. And Brandon gets out of the river on the opposite side, and I mean it's probably like a good 25 yards across. Yeah. And I was like, all right, Dixie, like, we got to go across. And she's very good in the water. Very, very good. So we start going across, and she's going to Brandon. And I'm walking behind her. I mean, the water goes up to here, so it's not really high. And I slip and I fall under. I was completely fine. But she instantly does a U-turn and, like, grabs my hand and starts pulling me. I instantly started balling up. Like, just to see that connection that her and I have. Yeah. So you can have a connection with your pets as well.
Duh. I freaking okay, so I don't know. Do you know about our cat?
We've talked about
our cat. Like, I love that thing, but it may be like silly. We have to give our pet like 3 pills a day, but like we love our freaking dog and cat so much that I like remember people, I feel like, make fun of like millennials for calling their like fur childs and stuff like that, but it's so true. Oh, they're my children. I know. You care so much about them.
My grandma was like, when am I going to get grandchildren? I was like, you already got 3. Like, stop.
Austin's mom will call the pets like the fur children. So, yeah. And grand dog.
See, and I guess I said it so much that my mom calls them her grandchildren now too. Yeah. Because when I go home, and she's starting to get emotional when we leave, because I don't do anything when I'm at my mom's house. Like, she takes care of the pups. Like, she just loves being with them. And she's the type of person, in the summers when the sun's going down, she goes outside her backyard and just sits there. And she loves just taking in the moment. Yeah. And when she's with the dogs, I don't exist when they're at grandma's. Like, they get away with murder. And it pisses me off sometimes. But, like...
It's going to be like when you actually have kids.
Oh, my God. It's going to be so much worse.
Yeah.
It's going to be 100% worse. Because if my mom spoils my dogs that way, I can only imagine what she would do to my children.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I mean, she's the most loveliest woman ever. But...
That's cool.
It's going to be rough. It's going to be very, very rough.
That's what grandmas are for, though.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But it's going to be like those... I see those videos all the time of, like... adults dropping their kids off at grandma's and like not like ding dong ditching. They're like, here you go, boom, we're gone. She's the type of person that would show up at my doorstep and be like, go on a date, like I'm taking my grandchildren.
Oh my gosh, have you seen, and this reminds me of like men being, it kind of ties this all together, but have you seen the video of the little boy giving his grandpa he like signed his grandpa's name and wanted to give him like the game ball, and
yes.
He's like in the garage and they both start like, I cry every single time I see that freaking video because now it's a commercial.
Oh yeah.
And oh my God, it's like the sweetest moment.
It's so beautiful to see. Like I love family. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, but yeah, no, I mean, my grandfather plays a huge role in my baseball life.
That's sweet.
My grandfather's, I don't know exactly how old my grandfather is, but he plays in a 60 and over league baseball.
Wow.
He makes fun of me that I play softball because it's too slow. Like, this is my grandfather we're talking about.
That's so cool.
And I remember, oh man, you know, he was always the loudest one in my stands.
Yeah.
Always. And it goes back to my whole family just being the biggest cheerleader for me.
Totally. That's how, like, my relationship with my dad was built off of like sports, because I was a sporty one, my brother was more the musical one, and so me and my dad were really close because we connected on that. We're both very competitive people, we're both good athletes, and that was like what we built our relationship upon, so it's really special. And then even my mom, though, even though she wasn't an athlete, she's like, yeah, I'll go like coach the soccer team, why not, like I'll be there, I'll be the team mom, and I'll be supporting you and taking you all these things. And it's just, you like look back on all of those little moments and how grateful you are for that support, like as you're growing up and all of the things that you want to do.
We talked about that in the last episode with Luis. I keep saying last episode. It's very hard when you film multiple episodes and you don't remember which one came out yet.
Which one was last?
Yeah, and I don't want to give out too much information. But the one with Luis, we kind of talked about that and how sports and our relationship with our parents kind of turned us into the people that we are today. And I don't want to get too much into that because we already talked about it, but it's true.
Yeah.
You know? And it means a lot to us. And the time that we spend with our parents kind of shows to me the time I need to spend with my kids.
Yeah.
And my parents did a very good job in teaching me what I need to do and what kind of role model I need to be. Totally. And that's why it was very hard when I swayed away from everything that they taught me. And when you get that, you know, kick in the stomach, that gut punch, and you realize you're nowhere near what they wanted you to be, I guess that's another factor of what really wanted me to change. Because they trained me. They raised me
to be like better.
100%.
Yeah.
And I still don't think I'm there. But I've taken a lot of steps in the right direction to be sure that I'm going to get there one day.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's ever really ready for kids. You know, it's just kind of happens. Is there a timeline with you and Austin?
I mean, yes. But like, it's one of those things that I try not to stress over too much also, because I think that when it happens, and it is what it is. Hopefully we're in a space where I feel like it is the right time, but it isn't like one of those things that's like, I want it to happen tomorrow sort of thing.
I don't think there ever really is a right time. I might be wrong. I don't know.
No, I agree. I think a lot of people say that too, that have become parents. They're like, they're never going to be like the perfect timing. But then I have a lot of like older people that's like, just wait, like there's not a rush, you know what I mean? I think I would rather, and I've said this too, because I always imagined myself like getting married super young. I mean, that's kind of just like the small town sort of vibe. Like you imagine yourself getting married young, being a young parent. And now as I've gotten older, I feel like I would rather be in a really good place with like knowing who I am and in my career to be able to like be the best parent that I can be. Because like 25-year-old Sarah did not need to be like raising a kid. Like, you know? I
100%.
think I'm a very different person. Now, would I have been a good mom still? Of course. But like, I don't know. It's weird.
The
It's
situation would have,
situational.
yeah,
Like,
situation would have been different.
yeah.
My mom had me when she was 22. My dad was 25.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had my brother 4 years after that. So I've outlived both of my parents having kids, both of their kids, and that kind of stresses me out. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 30. I don't have kids yet, and I want kids. But that's something I constantly have to tell myself is like, there's no rush. Like,
There
I'm not gonna
isn't.
force anything,
Right.
and that really helps me. It helps me mentally too. You know, when you're not looking for anything, you just kind of let things happen organically. But that goes back to what we were saying about the friendships. Is like you do have to create it for yourself. You have to create those opportunities for yourself.
Right. Like, you're not going to be able to just sit at home all day and be like, I'm just going to like let it happen when
Yeah,
I
I'm just
meet
gonna.
somebody.
Someone's gonna knock on my doorstep and be like,
You
"Hey,
have to be intentional.
exactly.
But also, it doesn't mean that it has to be forced.
100%. And it's just, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. I know what I want in life, and I know what that looks like, and I know there's going to be alterations to it. I know there's going to be audibles that I have to do and all of that, but I know enough of myself and who I am now and what I want to be able to be patient for it. When you don't know what you want in life,
Yeah.
you tend to force things. When you're very okay, like, I'm trying to find a way to put this. When you're okay with being by yourself, when you're happy with yourself, when you start to love yourself, things kind of tend to fall into place. And
Yeah.
it goes back to like creating those opportunities for yourself. But now you're in the right mindset to where you can do that.
Right.
You know, when you're not in the right mindset, you tend to force things. And that's when
Totally.
things don't really end up the way that you expected them to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that totally makes sense. And like, if you are creating this life of like loving yourself and loving the people you're surrounding yourself with and what you're doing, you're going to meet someone that matches those same values naturally.
And when you match someone that doesn't, your soul and every part of you can figure that out quicker.
Yeah.
As opposed to staying in a relationship for a very long time, not knowing what to expect from that person. You kind of pick up those red flags instantly. And you're not okay with those red flags, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has red flags. I feel like everybody's got their faults. And there's certain non-negotiables with everybody.
But you're able to set boundaries better
100%.
whenever you like are going to recognize this is what I deserve and this is the type of people that I want to surround myself with. You recognize what you're not okay with and who you'd like be okay with taking a step away from.
100%. And it just, like I said, it kind of goes back to when you set those boundaries, things tend to go smoother and you're happier. And it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. You have to work at everything in your life.
Right.
But it makes working for it that much greater.
Yeah.
Like
you know what you want.
Yeah.
And you're going to like put in the work to get what you want at that point.
There's nothing worse than spending so much time with the person and for it to kind of crumble apart and you guys go your separate ways. Like, that's why breakups are so hard.
It hurts.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And it kind of makes you wonder, but it's also a good thing. Like, it makes you try to, kind of realize, okay, what are my faults? What did I do? What do I need to change for, the next person that I date? And that's something that I wasn't always good at. And now I'm like, okay, like,
You can reflect now.
you can reflect. And it when we're young, we're dumb. We all kind of like, oh, well, we broke up, and you kind of put all the blame on the other person.
Yeah.
And now it's like, when you get older, you get wiser. Some people don't change, but when you get older, you get wiser. You start thinking, okay, even though you don't feel like you did anything wrong, you're able to look inside yourself and be like, what could I have
done better?
What could I have done better? 100%. And then you make those alterations. You change for the next person that comes into your life.
It's applicable to so many things in life in general.
But, I mean, that's the beauty of life is
living and learning, baby. Living and learning.
Living and learning. But we got to wrap this up, unfortunately. But one of the last things I kind of want to touch up on is that's something that I'm kind of stuck with. And I'm like in the middle of the two is, life is so short and you got to make the best of it while we're here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I try not to rush anything, right? So being able to find the perfect balance between the two is the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you're not able to do that unless you're in the right mindset.
Yeah.
Unless you're able to love yourself truly for who you are, know that you're human, you're not perfect, you're going to make mistakes,
Yeah.
and move forward from it. But that's the only way to be able to really understand and grasp the concept of life's short, but there's no rush,
Yeah.
right? It's a hard balance.
Being present.
Being present.
That's like one of the most difficult things you can do as a human being is being present.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the most valuable thing.
100%. And it's very hard. Like I said, there's so much more that we could talk
I
on.
know.
But I don't want to have another hour-long episode. But, how many times have you been with the group of friends, your group of friends, and there's that quiet moment where everybody's on their phone?
Yeah.
And I think the closer the friends, that doesn't happen as often,
Mm-hmm.
but it still happens.
Yeah.
And it's like, or how many times have you had a conversation with someone and in the back of your head, you're thinking of everything that you got to do and you completely miss
You're not actively being present or
Exactly.
actively listening to somebody.
And
yeah.
that's stuff that I try really hard to focus on. Going back to softball the other day, I wasn't there. I wasn't mentally there. And,
Yeah.
You leave and you kind of have that bad feeling like, dang it, like I missed an opportunity with my friends to be happy and kind of move on, but I didn't take that opportunity. So now the next time that happens, guess what?
You might
I'll
brush
be able
it off quicker.
Exactly. I'll be able to realize that in that moment.
Yep.
But Sarah, thank you so much.
Of
I
course.
love our conversations.
I know. I feel like we could talk so much.
Oh,
just
yeah.
about so many different
And
things.
it might be because, a male to female bond that you and I have, but yours and my conversations are always so much deeper.
Yeah.
And that's something that I love. And that's kind of what our viewers really look forward to, is that candidness between both of us and being able to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed it.
Same.
I really do appreciate you for coming on here. Remember, guys, if you guys liked the episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and smash that like button. Once again, Sarah, thank you so much. Your socials, if anybody wants to follow her, they can follow you at.
Thank you for having me first.
Of course.
My socials are usually just like at Milty, MILT with 4 Ys. That might be changing soon because I'm getting married. So I'm not going to be Milty anymore. That's weird.
So what are you going to change your Instagram?
I don't know. That'll maybe next episode. I'll be able to share that.
Or with 4
or with 4 Rs. I'll figure it out.
Well, thank you so much again, guys. All right, guys. I will see you guys later.